virtual field trip today. We're gonna go on a field trip at my house, I guess. We're gonna get to explore a actual working cattle ranch. We are gonna be starting in the corrals first. And right now we're standing in one of the bigger pens. It has horse stalls off to the far left. So as horse stalls off to the far left, the big barn, which we're not going to go into, is used for housing the hay when we need to feed hay. It houses the mineral, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Also is just some equipment storage where they keep a lot of their equipment. We're now going to walk through the main corrals. So these are just the different holding pens that we use to move the cattle around and get them to where they need to go into the chutes. So let's go through. Kind of one of the big rules of most ranches: if the gate is closed, leave it closed. If it's open, leave it open. So it's closed, so we're going to leave it closed. And this is the aisleway that we walk the cattle down when we're getting ready to process or preg check or load them out. So the cattle come to this point and they go through this way, and this little house over here is actually a scale where they weigh the cattle. It's important to weigh them, especially before you have them shipped somewhere, because cattle trucks have different laws where they can't be over a certain weight. So they weigh groups of cows as they go through to make sure that they're not overweight on the truck. As they go through there, you can kind of see we're not going to walk through it, but the whole alleyway, it curves around and then comes to this point. Right here is the hub. And actually, there's a swinging gate that comes around, and this allows about, depending on the size of the cows, if they're like small stockers, there are probably about 10 cows in here at a time. If they're bigger, a little bit less. But it kind of separates out groups so they can go down the green alleyway right there. And then at the end of the green alleyway is a hydraulic chute. And what this hydraulic chute is, actually, you know what, we'll just drive in there and we'll get a closer look at it.
Hi guys, so I am currently standing in what's called a tub. A tub, as Councilman said earlier, is where we bring the cattle in to bring them up to the chute. So this is the gate for a tub, and this is unique because it kind of squeezes the cattle up quietly and safely without having to scare them. So if you can see, there's little notches all the way through. So these notches allow you to move the gate a foot at a time to slowly work these cattle forward. You don't want to push them, you don't want to scare them, you want to keep them quiet and safe, because if they get scared, they're going to start panicking, and then that's where you get injuries to either your cattle or the workers as well. So I'm going to show you how this works. You come behind, you never get inside the tub with the cattle. That's just a really bad idea. So you come through, push this lever, and if it was full, you just push them through and then you stop, and it secures like that. And then as people at the chute push cattle forward and get them working through, I would be back here at the gate working them up. See? Just like that. And it's quiet, it's safe, and it's hands off the cattle, so you're not scaring them. So another unique quality for the tubs is, if you notice, they're curved. You will not see straight lines very often. So the reason it's curved is it makes the cattle lose their line of sight, and they instinctively want to turn around and get away. So it helps their natural instincts and keeps them calm and quiet, and you don't have any scares and they're not panicking.
So once the cows go through the tub, they come into another alleyway. And you may notice this alleyway, it has a gate here. This gate moves to allow, you know, 1 or 2 cows in at a time, and they fill up this alleyway. So this alleyway probably will hold 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, 6-ish cows. They come up this alleyway. You may notice there are blockers. So the way that these work is, as the cows go by, it's loose. So it goes like this. They go by, they squeeze by, and then it has a spring and it's spring loaded. So now the cow can't back up. So once they're in this, once they're past this, they're stuck here. So I have one here, and another one right here. And this gate is here just to keep the cows out of the area that the people will be working. And then this is a hydraulic chute. We're not actually going to turn it on right now, but the way it works is you can see the sides. This part right here opens up. So there's levers. Actually, we can go on the other side and look at the levers. So these different levers do different things. The one on the far right opens up the back side to allow 1 cow in. The middle one opens the middle, so it makes it go wider or squeezes it shut. And the front one does the front. So what happens is they'll have all of them open, 1 cow will come in, and then they shut it. And what this does is it's hydraulic. It actually squeezes the cow. And cattle are prey animals, so once they feel like they're trapped and they can't go anywhere, they actually freeze and they relax. And it's the safest way to handle cattle. Especially if you're giving them any shots or vaccines or tagging them or having to even like doctor them. This is the safest way. So once everything is done with them, they open everything back out and they come out this front. And you may notice this ground right here. Cattle have hooves. So this is actually a big concrete slab. Cattle have hooves, and cattle poo a lot and pee a lot, and this alleyway, it gets nasty when you have 1,000 cows coming through it. So this gets really slippery sometimes. So we have this woven tire mat. It's rubber, so it's soft for the cows when they come out, and they don't slip coming out, so they can kind of get their gears and go. If you turn around, there are a series of gates. So depending on where the cows are going to be going, if they're going to be, you know, if they need to go back that way to get weighed, or if they're getting loaded out right now, they're going to go through, you know, the gate over here to the left. If they are going to be put, you know, back out to the pasture, they go out this main gate, and then there's another gate that goes out that way to one of the pastures, or they can go to the holding pen. So this area is kind of a big intersection. They can go four different ways, depending on where they're going. I'm going to show you guys inside the supply closet. See if there's anything in here. Sweet. Just stay right there. All right, so this is kind of our supply shed. Some of the things we use to help kind of move the cattle, we have what are called hot shots. And these kind of give like a static shock when we kind of touch the cattle. We try to use these as minimal as possible. The only reason we use these is if they really just won't move. It's not, cattle have a lot thicker skin than people. It doesn't hurt them that bad. It's just kind of more of a startle. The next thing we'll use is a little, kind of like a whip. We don't actually like whip them, but it's more of just like taps to get them going. And also a flag. Flags are actually really, really effective, especially if you are in their line of sight and they see the movement of the flag and hear it. It works really, really well at helping move cattle. Some other interesting things we have in here are, stay there. We have a bottle of antibiotics that we give to the cattle when they are sick. This is a gun that we use, and it's actually attached to the bottle. So instead of using just disposable syringes and having to fill them up every single cow that goes through the chute, it's easy to have one of these that's already attached to the whole bottle. So it keeps pumping until the bottle's totally empty. So it saves a lot of time. actually attached to the wall there, but we have some Valvoline, which is a broad spectrum dewormer. It's an oral dewormer, so it actually goes into their mouth. And what broad spectrum means is it kills lots of different types of parasites. It's super effective and fairly easy to use. And this actually has a strap on it, so that way it hangs upside down like that on the chute while we're working. Got lots of fun stuff in here. The next thing we have, every once in a while, especially this time of year, when things are dry, we have foxtails. Cattle sometimes get them in their eye. Another thing that cattle sometimes get is like pink eye infections. So the way that we treat them is we actually use this NFZ eye puffer. It's actually a powder, and you shake it up and hold it near their eye and puff it powder into their eye. And then we actually recycle old jeans, and we make an eye patch. And we have this glue. It's a just an adhesive type glue that we glue it onto them with. And we actually put it on and then turn them back out, and it usually stays on for a week or so, and so it helps heal it, and it falls off on its own. Sometimes we need to mark certain cows. And the reason for marking is if we're out riding and we see one that's sick and we rope it, give it a shot of antibiotics, we'll actually put the date on, write the date really big on its side. So that way the next day if we're going through and we see it and it still looks sick, we know, oh, okay, that one got a shot of antibiotics on that day. Or later on, if it's been a week or so and it's kind of worn off, we go, okay, we probably need to give it a little bit more. That's the main reason for we use the livestock chalk for, and you can see it's just red, and it's like almost like a oily crayon that writes on them, and it stays on for usually like at least a few days to a week. I think that's it. The rest in here is all antibiotics. That's about it. So as we drive through the ranch, one of the things that we need to do is check water. All of our troughs are gravity fed. We have tanks on top of the hills. We need to double check the tanks and make sure that the tanks are full. If they're not full, that could be a problem. It could be a problem with the pump, so we need to check the well house, or there could be a water break somewhere on the ranch. So this first trough that we came to, I'll flip the camera around. Maybe not. Okay, cool. Doesn't look like I can flip it around. This first tank that we came to, it's open on the top, so all we have to do is just look in and double check and make sure there's water in it. So you can see all the water, and you can see there's a float that is floating. That float, when it sinks down, it triggers the water to turn on. So you can see the water right here. Which I'll show you once we get to another tank, how that all works. But this tank is good. It's up on top of a hill. Let's see. Woo. So it is gravity feeding into some troughs, which we are going to check next.
Okay, so we're on a different side of the ranch now. We drove up and over the hill, and this side of the ranch is about 6,000 acres. It's sectioned off into 5 varying size pastures. And so you can see here we have the big old fence line, so we have pastures here, and on that side, this is a section over there. So they have it divided out and not in one big space because you can rotate the cattle through to make sure they don't eat everything down at the same time. If you rotate pastures out, it maintains the sustainability of the ranch, because if they overgraze it in an area, there's going to not be enough feed to feed all your cattle. So you rotate the pastures to give the other pastures time to regrow and rehabilitate from having cattle. Cattle ranches have all sorts of different gates, and it's really important to know how to use the gates. And remember, the key rule on a ranch is if the gate is shut, leave it shut. If it's open, leave it open. If the gate is open, that can mean the water is broken over there, so the cattle need to go to the other field to go ahead and get water. If you shut that gate and nobody comes out and checks them for the week, you have cattle without water for a very long time, and that's not okay. Bad things are gonna happen. You're gonna lose your cattle, you're gonna have a lot of illness, and it's just not fair for them to not have access to water. So this gate is uniquely built for the ranch. You have to be careful, you gotta watch for pinch points. I don't wanna put my hand right here because I'm gonna flip this up. I'm gonna make sure I hold everything so it doesn't spring load back to me. Watch your fingers, because sometimes they're spring loaded. I'm gonna pull it off. And then there's a wire here to hold the base. So that holds everything in. So you lift it out and then you walk it way out so it doesn't tingle and drag it out so you can drive your vehicle through. Huh? You're going? All right, once you get your gate pulled back over, this type, you have to start from the bottom up. So you stick the pole back into the wire. It's real fun because you have to angle it, pull the wire up, and then you bring this over, watch your fingers, and then pull it back over, and then it's super secure, not going anywhere.
That we're checking. This one is actually pretty gross and really needs to be cleaned out. It's full of algae. Algae is a big problem in the summertime because algae needs sunshine to grow, and so when there's a lot of sunshine shining into it, it triggers the algae to really grow. And right now we really are on minimal cattle. We only have a handful out, which we will go check in just a minute. So they're not drinking it as fast, so it's kind of just stagnant water that is growing algae. So this trough does need to be cleaned out. To clean it out, we just take our shovel and just scoop out the disgusting algae. The way this trough works though, so first thing we're checking that it's full. If it's full, that means that the float system is probably working. Over here is the float. You see this cage with this ball, and it's attached to a pipe that is covered in algae. Yummy. There you go, you can see better. We have to have a cage around the float because we do have wild pigs out here. And the wild pigs like to climb in the water troughs to cool down, and they also drink the water. And they'll get underneath the float and break them really easy. Also the cows kind of play with them too. It's just to protect the float. Because if the float breaks, it won't refill. So the float is super, super, super important. And I'm going to show you how the float works. So as the cattle come down and they start drinking, it lowers the water in the float, in the water trough. This round ball, it's literally a plastic hollow ball. So it's just floating on here. And then it has a pipe connected to it along here. And then this pipe is connected to to a nozzle. As the cows drink, the water level drops, and so does the float. So as it drops, the float goes down, and you can hear, this one's actually a really quiet one. You can hear there's water. So this one's a really quiet one. Wow, this one must have just got fixed. I have my hand down below there. There's water coming out like it's coming out of a hose. So watch if you can listen closely. It's very quiet. You probably can't hear them. There we go. So you can hear the water turning on and off. So as the cows drink, the float sinks down and it triggers the water to turn on. So it automatically turns on, and we don't have to come out here on a daily basis and fill them up for the cows. Also, another thing over here, next to pretty much all of our water troughs, we have these round tire things. These tires, what they are basically a cutout of a tire, and then there's plywood underneath them. We fill them with mineral. And what this is it's a mineral supplement that we feed to the cows to make sure that they're getting all the proper minerals that they need. It has all different types of minerals. It's got salt in it. The biggest thing in our area, a lot of cattle are deficient in copper. Our area, I guess, lacks copper. These cows are out just on a pasture. We don't feed them hay or anything. That's why we do the pasture rotating, so they have enough grass so that they can eat it for the time that they're here. But the ground and the land that we're on does lack some copper, which is a macronutrient that cattle need. So we put out mineral for them to lick, and when they crave different minerals, they actually come over and lick it and eat it. It also has like salt in it, and the cattle like the salt. It almost just looks like a sand. You can kind of zoom in. It kind of smells good. It smells kind of almost like yeast a little bit. But we put this out when there's a lot of cows, especially like late spring, and they're really growing, and we have a lot of them out here. We're putting mineral out probably every other day, and they come in big 50-pound sacks. We just dump them in and go. Some symptoms of mineral deficiencies are copper. The big one is their coat could be discolored. So a copper deficiency, a lot of times their coat will get really like brassy colors, so they almost look like an orange instead of black for the Angus cows. Some other symptoms are just not growing, losing weight, acting lethargic, diarrhea. So just signs of sickness could be a mineral deficiency. So that's why we keep mineral out for them all the time. So that way, you know, when they crave the minerals, if they're lacking minerals, they can come over and eat it themselves. So we're on the top of the other hill, and we're looking at a different tank. Now this tank, you may notice, it has a big PVC pipe sticking out the top. What that is it's actually a float. So what that indicates is when that is all the way up in the air, that means that tank is full. So it makes checking water and checking the tanks a lot easier. Most of the time we'll just drive by and we'll go, cool, it's up in the air, that means that tank's full, it's good. Versus the other one that I showed you a bit ago, that one we actually had to look into it. So I'm gonna double check. It's got a little bit of a leak somewhere, which I'm gonna walk around and check really quick. I'm gonna slip in the mud. So, yep, it's full. So, PVC up in the air. That thing, it's got a float, which you can see right there. When the tank is full, it floats all the way up to the top. This float is almost the exact same one that was on that water trough earlier. Let me see if I can turn this on. Oh, it's not gonna let me, but I'll try to find a good one to show you guys. Now, one thing I did notice when I pulled up to this trough is there's mud around. So anytime we're driving around on the ranch, we want to look for mud. This time of year, mud is not a good thing because it indicates that there is probably a water break or a leak somewhere. So I'm going to walk around. And I bet you there is a leak somewhere down there where there's a big puddle. Keep walking around. I don't see any very obvious leaks here. There's the shut-off. I think those are pig tracks in there. Pigs have been playing in the mud. Well, I don't see any obvious leaks. I'll definitely take note of it and let our ranch hand know. So I'm gonna guess I bet you there's a leak right there. We found a friend.
That is a big old tarantula.
One of the myths, I guess, that I've always been told, if the tarantula is walking uphill, that means that rain is coming. If a tarantula, so if a tarantula is walking uphill, supposedly that means that rain is coming. This guy's walking downhill though, so that's not a good sign. But tarantulas are harmless. They're just furry little spiders. They can bite, but it's no worse than like a bee sting. Take it closer. Cool.
cattle will not eat it. And what happens is it continues to populate and seed and get bigger and bigger and bigger patches to where it takes over spaces where the cattle will not go. That takes away space for them to be able to eat, which gives you less range area for them, which means you can have less cattle on your land. Plus, if they walk through it, they get stickers on them, they can get sores and abscesses, and it just can cause a whole lot of health issues. They get it in their eyes, which you get pink eye and infections. So you don't want invasive species in your area, and it's really hard to get rid of. You just can't come out on 6,000 acres and pull a few weeds. As you can see, it overtakes very, very quickly.
Go.
Okay, so you notice it's a little bit hazy out here, and if you look out behind me, this isn't actually haze, it's smoke. The smoke is from the Dolan fire in Big Sur that's going on right now. And the benefit of running cattle on land is that you can see, if you look at my feet, it's pretty low. Yes, there's plants and there's growth, but there's not a lot of it. The cattle can eat it down, get more dirt in between everything, and if you look out on the hillsides, there's lots of open space. It's not overgrown. If you were to go out to Big Sur where the fire is, you're gonna have brush that's grown and died and grown and died, so you get big piles of growth, and that causes fires to get really hot really fast and move, especially with all this wind that we get out here. So out here, if lightning were to strike, yes, we're gonna have a fire. However, it's not gonna move as fast and it won't be as hot because it doesn't have all the fuel. So that means people can get out here quickly and put it out a lot faster because it's not spreading as quick.
Into supermarkets and all that. So these guys were, I think, just leftovers that did not get gathered in May, so they're just kind of out here to just keep grazing, and then we'll gather them eventually and send them off to be shipped. One of the biggest things we need to do though is when we're driving around checking waters and just checking on things is we also check the cattle. Some of the things we're looking for is just mainly health issues. If the cattle look like they're lethargic, if they've lost weight, if they have runny eyes, runny nose, just look unwell. These guys all look pretty well. The cows out here, they're not friendly cows. We can't get close to them, so from where I am, if I were to walk just maybe 20 feet this direction, the ones that are laying down, they would probably get up and start moving away from me. They're not friendly animals, but you don't really want them to be because we're going to be able to survive out here on their own. So we showed you the tanks and the water troughs, and I mentioned how they were all you know, gravity fed. I'm going to show you guys one of the well houses. So, oh, there's a critter in here, probably a squirrel. Oh, it's a bunny rabbit. How cute. So yes, we have some wildlife living around here. We got a cute little bunny that's made this little well house its home. But anyway, this is the pump. So what this pump does is it pumps directly from the well. So this is the well that right below it. It pumps the water, it pushes it up the hill. So this is the first tank is behind it. Pumps it up to the tank. And then the tank gravity feeds into the water troughs. So this one's a pretty simple one. It goes straight up into here, but this pump also pumps up to one that goes like way up on the other side of that hill. And it also pumps to other ones. So it's a pretty heavy duty pump that pumps up to a lot of different tanks. Here is all the electrical. It does have a meter, so it uses a lot of electrical. The one thing that is a little unique, that is really cool actually, is this pump, as well as a lot of the other pumps, are actually run on solar. So to really help kind of conserve energy, to kind of cut costs, we have different solar panels around. We have panels around it just so that way the cows don't mess with it. But this pump, as well as quite a few pumps on our property, are run through solar power. Go.
Okay, so one thing, being on a cattle ranch and having lots of animals, things do, unfortunately, do die. So whether it's from sickness, that's what it's going to be mostly. Maybe they ate something that they shouldn't and they bloat, or just sometimes things die and it's sad, but that's nature. And out here, this is going to contribute to something called the carbon cycle. So the carbon cycle is a part of a life cycle where we're all made of carbon, living organisms, organic matter. So when something dies, it's going to regenerate into the environment. So the carnivores and the scavengers are going to eat it. So we're going to have coyotes that come out and pick this carcass pretty clean. And this has been out here for maybe 2 weeks at the most. So they're going to come out. We're going to have vultures that will come out and pick it clean as well. And then we get lots of beetles that will eat it. So if you look, you can see some ribs right here. So it's pretty cool to be able to see the internals. Shh, you're okay. And then we have vertebra right here. And they're very large, and the spinal cord actually runs through all this, and it is encased through the vertebra. So they have a very large spinal cord. And over here you can see part of the jaw. And it's neat to be able, I don't know what's under here. Okay. So you can see the teeth. So that's really very interesting to look. And as we walked through, we found all sorts of parts, and up here we actually found the whole front, or one of the legs, still almost intact. So I didn't want to mess with it too much, but you can see the hoof is still attached. And then you have the pastern all the way up, and then you get the tarsals, all of that, all through here. Very cool, look at that. And then you got connected vertebra still. Very neat. All right, so here is the other part of the cattle operation out on this ranch, which is the cow-calf. So if you see behind me, there's cows, and then they have calves at their side, or they're gonna be calving very soon. You can see the babies are rather little, so so they have their babies out here, and then when they wean them, they'll go back to the other side of the ranch with all the stockers. So, and then after they get raised out, they go out with the stockers to the feedlot to be processed, or raised out, fattened, and then processed. So as we go through, we check for sick cows, babies, anything abnormal that might not look right. So same thing as we would do with the stockers, we do with the cow-calf.
Hey guys, so one of the things we've already kind of talked about is checking for health issues. As we were out checking the cow-calves, I did find a cow that is rather lame and looks unwell. I'm gonna flip it around before, see if you can see her. So if you guys see that one that's kind of limping along, kind of at the end, the back of the herd here, off to the far, I guess, left. So she's acting lethargic, she's limping, she's really sucked up, meaning she's probably dehydrated. I'm gonna back off now so I don't get them to move a lot. But she just looks very unwell. So we are probably going to either bring her in or bring some her horses out here to doctor her or something. She actually, looking at her walking away, it looks like she maybe has an injured leg. So I don't see any calves around her though, and she doesn't have an udder, so I don't think she has a baby with her, which is a good thing, meaning we don't have to go find an abandoned calf.